You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
Well, if you were with us yesterday, you heard the awful story coming out of New Mexico. Actually, there's two of them coming out of New Mexico about police raping and torturing a man who rolled through a stop sign. I know, you're thinking, what? And if you were listening yesterday, you know the story, but I'm just going to recap this because there's some new developments in this, or at least some new discoveries on this. And I'm taking a lot of this information off of a website called popehat.com. And there are some legal bloggers out there, and they wrote a post, Ken White wrote a post called, "What is the quantum of proof necessary for police to rape and torture you in New Mexico?" So for those of you who missed the story from yesterday, a man by the name of David Eckert in Deming, New Mexico, was leaving a Walmart parking lot when he rolled through a stop sign. The parking lot stop sign as you go out onto the street, right? So it's not like he's in the road and ran a four-way stop or anything. This is a parking lot stop sign he ran through. Ran through the parking lot stop sign. Cop pulls him over. The cop, and this is just really frustrating. The cop suspects that this guy has drugs, brings a drug dog in. The drug dog alerts at the guy's driver's side seat. And the cop said the guy was fidgeting, nervous, and clenching his butt cheeks. So because of that, they believed that naturally, he was storing drugs up his ass. So here is what went down. And again, we read this yesterday, but I'm going to read it again because we can't tell this story enough, people. Number one, by the way, they took him to a hospital. Before I get into this, they took him to a hospital to have doctors, do an anal cavity search on the guy. They got a warrant from a judge to do an anal cavity search on this guy. The first hospital wouldn't do it. The doctor's like, this is unethical. I'm not going to do this. So they took him to a hospital in the county next door. And this is what they did. Number one, Eckert's abdominal area was x-rayed. No narcotics were found. 2, doctors then performed an exam of Eckert's anus with their fingers. No narcotics were found. Number 3, doctors performed a second exam of Eckert's anus with their fingers. No narcotics were found. Because, that first one, you might have missed something. Number 4, doctors penetrated Eckert's anus to insert an enema. Eckert was forced to defecate in front of doctors and police officers. Eckert watched as doctors searched his stool. No narcotics were found. Number 5, doctors penetrated Eckert's anus to insert an enema a second time. Eckert was forced to defecate in front of doctors and police officers. Eckert watched as doctors searched his stool. No narcotics were found. 6, doctors penetrated Eckert's anus to insert an enema a third time. Eckert was forced to defecate in front of doctors and police officers. Eckert watched as doctors searched his stool. No narcotics were found. 7, doctors then x-rayed Eckert again. No narcotics were found. 8, doctors prepared Eckert for surgery, sedated him, and then performed a colonoscopy, where a scope with a camera was inserted into Eckert's anus, rectum, colon, and large intestines. No narcotics were found. Now, the whole drug law reform community is going bonkers over this. Drug Policy Alliance just put out an alert on this. There's, of course, a major federal lawsuit going through this. And the writer at Popehat wants to point out that what the doctors and the police did here was rape and torture. And he lists the New Mexico statutes that describe what the actual definitions of rape in that state. And as we go through this, here is some of the new information. First of all, we have the warrant. We have a copy of the warrant and a copy of the hospital records for Mr. Eckert. The lawsuit being filed under the federal complaint is being filed against the city of Deming, New Mexico. Deming police officers Bobby Orozco, Robert Chavez, and Officer Hernandez. Hidalgo County Sheriff's Officers David Arredondo, Robert Rodriguez, and Patrick Green, Deputy DA Daniel Doherty, and Gila Regional Medical Center doctors Robert Wilcox and OKH Odocha. So want to make sure those names made it into the record, because these are the people who tortured this man for over 14 hours there because a drug dog said that there was some smell on the seat of his car and a cop thought he was clenching his butt cheeks. So, here's some more updates on this. The copy of the search warrant indicates that it was a brown 1998 Dodge, and the search warrant was to search David Eckert, included but not limited to his anal cavity. But before he applied to a judge for the warrant, Officer Chavez asked the Deputy DA, Daniel Doherty, for permission. Asking a Deputy DA for permission, in theory, prevents cops from seeking improper or deficient warrants. In theory. So this went through not just a judge, but also a DA who thought, oh, well, yeah, if there's a suspicious guy who might have drugs up his ass, take him to the hospital and shove a colonoscopy up there. Now, in the search warrant, this is the sum total of what this is Officer Chavez's search warrant request to the judge, who then gave him the warrant to torture this guy and so on. I, Officer Robert Chavez, was contacted by Sergeant Detective Orozco in reference to a Dodge pickup truck that failed to stop. I was traveling eastbound on Pine Street, located him, and I conducted a traffic stop. I approached the driver, informed him for the reason of the stop. While speaking with Mr. Eckert, I did notice that he was avoiding eye contact with me as I asked him for his driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance. As Mr. Eckert handed me the documents that were requested, I did notice his left hand began to shake, at which time I had Mr. Eckert step out of the vehicle. Once outside of the vehicle, Mr. Eckert was asked if he had any weapons or anything else that might harm me, which he stated no. I then conducted a Terry pat-down. By the way, that Terry is the case, the Supreme Court case that says that cops can pat you down to see if there's an obvious weapon that you might hurt them with. So we did the Terry pat-down on Mr. Eckert to search for weapons, and none were found. While Mr. Eckert was standing outside of his vehicle, I did notice his posture to be erect, and he kept his legs together. A short time later, I informed Mr. Eckert that a uniformed patrol officer was coming to issue him a citation for the stop sign violation. Officer Villegas did arrive and issued Mr. Eckert his citation for stop sign violation. Mr. Eckert was then informed he was free to go. Stop! That point right there is where this story should end. People, how many times do I have to tell you, when the cops give you the ticket and say you are free to go, fucking leave! When they say you have the right to go, when you're free to go, you go. You don't answer any more questions. You don't sit there and chat with the cop. This is a technique cops are taught that's called the rolling no. The whole idea is, once they've given you that ticket and you're free to go, they're not subject to any of the certain rules of how they conduct themselves. From that point on, it's just a casual chat. And remember, anything you say or do can be used against you. They love it when you start chatting with them after they've given you the ticket. But Mr. Eckert doesn't listen to my show. So, it continues. As Mr. Eckert turned to walk back toward his vehicle, I asked him for verbal consent to search his vehicle for any illegal narcotics and or weapons. At the time, he did give consent. Don't consent to a search. Just say no. We'll continue. I then asked Mr. Eckert if I could search his person for any illegal narcotics and or weapons. At that time, he stated that he had a problem with me searching his person. I then informed Mr. Eckert that an open-air search was going to be conducted on the vehicle and reminded him that he had given verbal consent to search the vehicle as well. Hidalgo County K-9 officer walked his K-9 around the vehicle, which the K-9 alerted to the driver's side of the vehicle. A short time later, the K-9 made entry into the cab of the vehicle and once again alerted to the driver's side seat. Mr. Eckert was then informed of the K-9 alerting to the seat and was informed that a search warrant was going to be obtained. Hidalgo County K-9 officer did inform me that he had dealt with Mr. Eckert on a previous case and stated that Mr. Eckert was known to insert drugs into his anal cavity and had been caught in Hidalgo County with drugs in his anal cavity. Mr. Eckert was then placed into investigative detention and was transported to the Deming Police Department. Mr. Eckert's vehicle was tagged for evidence and transferred to the impound lot. At approximately 1:40 hours, I contacted the I'm sorry, that's not right. But I contacted the deputy DA, informed of the incident. The the deputy DA approved the pursuit of a search warrant and also for Mr. Eckert's anal cavity. So let's recap this, folks. Here's the factors that a cop needs in order to subject you to 14 hours of anal rape. Your hands are shaking. You avoid eye contact. You refuse a search of your person. You stand erect with your legs together. And a drug dog sniffs out your seat. And an unidentified canine officer, without any specificity, says that Eckert had previously hidden drugs in his ass. That's it. This really comes down to three things, people. A subjective officer impression that the suspect looked nervous, a drug dog alerting on the seat, and an unnamed cop making unspecific claims that he had previously hidden drugs. We're going to take this into hour two, folks, because I am not even close to done with this story. We're going to tear apart this search warrant. We're going to talk a little bit about the law. And please, when they say you're free to go, go. When they ask if they want to leave, say no. So we'll talk about for hour one. Thanks for joining us, folks. We're back with hour two in just a second. Boise, Idaho, I'm Radical Russ for 420 Radio. Glad you be here, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it.